I mean, in this day and age, you're right. I mean, audio can easily be mimicked.
A lot of data sets don't necessarily filter out copyrighted information.
Before all the AI stuff came around, there was people that would call my grandma and say that I was in jail.
It's assumed that everything you tell to an AI, it's going to store and remember forever and uses its own training data down the line.
Hello, everyone. This is Jason Bittner from Helix Corporation, and welcome back to our Helix Insider podcast. I'm joined in studio with two of my senior developers, Sam Sheldon and Andy Webster. Welcome, both of you. So today we're going to talk to you about something that is very, very interesting that's going on and the very leading edge of our technology space, and that is AI. We've had a few conversations related to AI already. However, the AI paradigm is actually also has some risks, and it's a concern for users of early adoption of AI that we wanted to highlight some of the things to be aware of when using AI. I mean, it's a great new technology, but it also does pose some inherent risks. So with that, let's start the conversation around the big topic is data harvesting and privacy concerns. Many folks are concerned that the data being used to train these large data sets is inherently being taken possibly without even their knowledge. And the data that is sensitive to them is actually being used in training. And so, Sam, let's start with you on that topic. What are your thoughts on the data and privacy concerns with using AI?
Something that I've been looking into and, just generally interested in is a lot of the, ethical concerns around training data, including copyrighted images that aren't necessarily used with the knowledge or consent of the image creators. So that's actually a big thing in a lot of art communities. You'll get, there are tools, for example, that would let you generate images based on the style of an existing artist. That is a really controversial thing. A lot of those artists actually don't want images generated that way of their art. And a lot of data sets don't necessarily filter out copyrighted information. For example, I know one of the big data sets, I'm not going to name names partially because I don't know if I can pronounce it correctly, and partially because there's a lot of data sets out there. But data sets that are just lists of URLs to images with appropriate metadata don't necessarily need to worry about copyright on the training data side because they don't have any copyrighted information. But they assume that their end users will certainly filter for copyright and, legally usable images. But in practice, who knows? It's not clear if that's ever happening in a lot of cases. So to combat that as sort of a risk in using these AI tools, there are actually tools that artists use. Glaze and Nightshade both come to mind that are tools for, Glaze will mask your style, essentially. So that's specifically to fight against the, give me an image of bananas in the style of a given artist. It'll give you an incorrect style because they've glazed their artwork. And then Nightshade is the other one that I think is probably more relevant to most people. And it's a tool that essentially poisons the well of training data. So for example, if you're asking for an image of a cow, but the AI has been trained on a data set that uses a lot of nightshaded image data, it might give you a picture of a handbag instead because the code that they run on those images makes the AI think, yes, cows have smooth leather handles and are square. That's actually the example they use on Nightshade's website is cows and handbags. It's the only example that I remember them using. I don't know why they were so fixated on that, but it's very interesting because it doesn't change the way the original images look to a human, but it changes the way that the training algorithms work. So there's a bit of an arms race going on there.
Yeah, and that's good from like a, people are defending themselves standpoint, but from an ethical standpoint, it's kind of like, okay, should they have to be defending themselves in this manner? They're putting a lot of extra effort into it, but
Yeah, and for the people who are using the AIs for image generation, it means that at some point there might be a whole rush of unreliable images where you're trying to generate images of cows or whatever, and you just get something completely irrelevant.
No, that's an excellent point. We all know of a few of the major players in AI image generation, and because we're interested and curious about this, we've invested in some of these tools to learn about them. There was one other image generation tool, and I don't have it at the top of my head, but I do recall that what was really unique about this one, they're not as big as some of the major players, in that they would actually cite all the sources for an image that was provided to you from who the original art creators contributed in the training set to make that image, and they would attribute the artists. And it got me thinking, we all familiar with like music streaming services, right? Like, you go buy a CD that you physically own the music, or you rent it, so to speak, from like a Spotify. And the new economy for how those artists are being compensated is that they get paid fractions of a penny per play. But if you have millions and millions of plays, then you make some decent money. And I see an economy starting where the AI generated tools and the data sets, if it follows that same model, we could see the artists and creators getting a residual, pennies on the generation payback, because the tools, and this obviously requires the whole environment to be more ethically minded, but thinking about how an artist could actually make a decent living and create their art that they love, but then if it's used in generative training and AI, they still make money off of it. I think that's a real win-win for everyone. Some thoughts to consider, I suppose. All right, I'm going to do a pivot now. So we've actually talked about some of the ethics and pitfalls of copyrighted data and private data. Let's turn to some of the other challenges we're aware of with AI. Is the potential for scams and misuse. We know AI tools are actually getting quite sophisticated in that they can mimic real people, not only in the way they sound, in their tone or their tenor, but actually even in video. There was a pretty famous video of a congressman who had actually recorded or trained an AI in him through, I think, 30 hours of his speeches. And then he gave the AI a script and had him sing some crazy things that he would never say. And then he played that in front of Congress, and they said, "You guys see this, and it looks like me, but I wouldn't, me, I would never say that." So, we get to some real challenges where it's like, I got a video of so-and-so saying something, but is it real? How can we protect ourselves from that? Andy, I'd like to start with your thoughts on some of those things.
yeah, I mean, I think the potential for that is really pretty dangerous. I mean, like, I live in the computer world, so when I'm looking at like what would be a deep fake, I can kind of like see like, wait a minute, his mouth isn't moving in a realistic way. He's not a real person. But like, I can just see potential if people are uneducated in the fact that these things exist, then you could have real potential for you know duping of the masses. Like by making a politician say something bizarre. But you know and honestly, the best kinds of lies are the ones that have some truth in them, or a lot of truth and a little bit of a lie. So you could I could see right now this technology is kind of in its infancy, I would say, right now. But give it a couple of years, it would become a lot harder to actually determine the difference between a deep fake and uh, a real person speaking. I, I recently actually just I was just going through YouTube, and I just see this ad, and it's like Blake Shelton giving away free crossbows, and I'm listening to it, and I watch the voice, so I know what he sounds like, and so I'm just listening to it, and I'm thinking that doesn't sound like him. And then I start looking at him and I'm like, and that doesn't really look like him either. And then I go and look it up, and sure, lo and behold, there's like actually a scam with this. Somebody made this scam video and legally they legally purchased an advertisement space on YouTube, and you're just going through YouTube and you get an ad for this. It's a complete scam. You go there and they have some kind of a it was some kind of classic scam that they rope you in for an extra $100-$200 somewhere to ship it to your house, the free crossbow, and and then they get you, and it can be dangerous for people, and I think yes, we need to find ways to combat it directly, but also just we need to really make sure people are informed that things like this exist and that they should probably have their antennas up when they're watching literally anything on the internet.
And I mean, it doesn't even have to be watching either, because I know that ChatGPT has been fighting for a while with people that use it to generate phishing email templates, which is time consuming and annoying, but get the AI to do it. You can send as many phishing emails as you want with those templates. And if you're sending that to, a business email list that you got by whatever means, how many people are you going to catch with that? Because I mean, I don't know about you, but we get like, our emails aren't all over the place, but we still get a decent amount of attempted scam emails. They're usually pretty bad. They're usually just people pretending to be Jason asking for our mobile numbers for some reason. But imagine you're sitting at work and you're waiting for a document from some other company, and you get a, Microsoft looking email that says something about retrieving your documents, and you click the link, you go to the site, put in your password. Nope, it's a scam.
I think you nailed it right with your first comment there, Andy, is that awareness is key, right? And to your point, Sam, we've gotten ourselves educated through repetition. We see so many of those emails that come through that we're immediately, all right, Jason would never send me an email asking for a Walmart gift card. But it can get more subtle than that, right? And so a lot of what's out there in the technology, you have to kind of say to yourself, believe that it could be that complex. And always the adage I've always been heard is trust but verify. You still have to do business, you still have to work with your colleagues, so you trust them, but you also want to verify that if the information you're getting is real. So if I ever sent an email to you guys or vice versa, and it was kind of a weird request to get via email, we would call each other and say, hey, was this really from you? And so many of those ACH scams could be prevented this way, where the boss who might be a little bit pushy, and he tells his assistant, I'm walking into a meeting, I need $50,000 wired to this account stat, don't talk to me. And they rely on fear and like immediacy, right? I think you mentioned that on one of our earlier podcasts, Andy. And just the fact that this stuff is out there, the key is to stay vigilant and be aware of it, and don't think just, oh, it's a video, of course it's real. It's not true anymore.
Yeah, and also keep inform people you love too. Like before all the AI stuff came around, there was people that would call my grandma and say that I was in jail in Canada or something, and that they needed to wire bail for me to get out. They were pretending to be me, saying that I was in jail in Canada and needed bail to get out of jail. And my grandma did the right thing. She called me and she's like, Andy, are you in jail? I'm like, no, I'm sitting in my house somewhere. I'm fine. But with the ability of, honestly, I think a voice is actually potentially even a little more dangerous, because you can't see the video or the face or anything like that. It's not as sophisticated yet. So but AI generating scams through voice, they could just call you on the phone and kind of have somewhat of a conversation. There will probably be a delay, which will be the giveaway. when it's calculating what to say next. But yeah, inform your loved ones.
All right, so let's pivot to the last topic we want to go over, and that's actually false confidence and reliability in AI generated data. So obviously there's a lot of data in there, and there's a sort of a tendency, because it's so new and so interesting, that anything you consume via the AI landscape is immediately factual and valid. But we all know, even just with the internet, like that old phrase, don't believe everything you saw on the internet, and that quote is attributed to Abraham Lincoln. And obviously not not real, but it's a funny take on that. And so even with AI data, you have to be sensitive to the accuracy and validity of that. Sam, talk to our listeners about what that means in our world and the space that you play in.
Yeah, so false confidence and just general reliability issues. So I think I described it at one point as the AI can be very confidently wrong. So there was actually an interesting case with Air Canada not too long ago, where they have a chat bot on their website that, customers, they use it to get information on policies, on flights, whatever the case may be. Basically a stand-in for a sales rep. So someone had reached out to the chatbot and asked for information on a specific policy that they had. And the chatbot was confidently wrong in its answer and gave them a completely inaccurate response. It linked to the page that would have had the correct information, but the user understandably took the chatbot's confident reply as, oh, okay, this is the policy. And that ended up in small claims court because, as it turns out, the policy was incorrect and Air Canada functionally needed to honor it because it was their chatbot and it was working for them and it provided information that was wrong. And it's a potentially interesting legal precedent there, not in the United States, but definitely shows some of the risks of using essentially unmonitored AI as part of your business, that if that AI provides incorrect information, it's just like an employee, essentially, but you don't know what's going on in their head and you don't really have a great deal of control over their training.
So true, so true. Andy, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think my takeaway from my lesson from that story would be that AI still needs human review on everything that it does. And when you loosen AI out like that you kind of need to make some identifying factors that show that it is, in fact, an AI, so that people can know, okay, this is an AI. It might not be telling the truth. It might think it is, but it might not be telling the truth.
Right. And that's an important point. It's not a malicious inaccuracy. It's just how it was trained and what it's presenting, for sure.
Yeah. And interestingly, that can also have some implications too. I know that AI has been used is being used in hiring and stuff. It can introduce some unfortunate bias that may actually have legal ramifications because the AI might, through no fault of its own, discriminate because it has all this information about, past high performers that you'd want to hire, all of whom happen to be middle-aged white men. And it says, oh, I see this is the criteria for success. Let me filter out all the ones that don't meet this, bar of success that we've listed here, which is problematic.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds terrifying.
And never mind what it might be doing with the data you feed into it. It's going to learn from that too.
We've gone through quite a few of the interesting pitfalls and things to be aware of with AI. And I guess, at this point, I'd like to kind of wrap up, but I think it's probably safe to say that, with AI and how interesting and possibly terrifying it is, it's all about striking the right balance. And so, recognizing a new, just very, very on the leading edge technology also has inherent pitfalls that, eyes wide open when using it, right? So, final thoughts. I'll start with you, Andy, and then I'll wrap up with you, Sam.
Yeah, I would just say, for one, because of data being harvested by AIs, just if you want to be cautious, then take down any public information you wouldn't want an AI to be scraping. I mean, it may have already done that, but in that sense, and like Sam was saying, about artists with art taking countermeasures to protect your work, because it really is the Wild West with AI out there right now. So you kind of have to defend yourself because there isn't really any protection in place yet.
Good point. Excellent point. Sam, final thoughts?
Yeah, so I'd say be wary. Be wary of the technology that you can't look under the hood very easily. It's assumed that everything you tell to an AI, it's going to store and remember forever and uses its own training data down the line. Nothing is secret when you talk to the AI. And it doesn't have, it's not actually intelligent. It just knows what the next, most common word or pixel is going to be. It doesn't know why.
Excellent. And I guess that goes right back to that main point, is the striking the balance. Be aware of what it is you're using. So, okay, well, that is all the time we have today. And I wanted to thank my special guests, Andy Webster, Sam Sheldon, my two senior developers, for being in the podcast with me today. And until next time, this has been the Helix Insider Podcast. And if you like the podcast, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe down in the comments below. And until then, we'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.